who had pink eye as a child knows that if you make eye contact with an infected person, you'll get infected too. Over time, this virus has mutated. Now, those infected not only develop blood-red eyes but also become extremely aggressive, bloodthirsty, and their brains are controlled by primal instincts, much like zombies. Derek, a lawyer, had worked diligently at his company for 2.5 years. Instead of a promotion and raise, he was framed by his boss and fired to take the blame for something he didn't do. Naturally, Derek wasn't happy about it and decided to confront John, his boss. What Derek didn't know was that Kara had already said something to John earlier. With the same result, John didn't listen to her explanation. As soon as Derek returned to his office, the termination letter from HR was waiting for him, and security was already there to escort him out. Just as Derek was about to be thrown out of the building, a fully armed military unit arrived, forcing everyone back inside. Health officials sealed all exits. It turned out they had detected an outbreak of the ID7 virus, what was once known as pink eye. The officials announced that they would release a neutralizing agent through the ventilation system, but it would take at least 8 hours to fully clear the virus. According to Florida's newly enacted laws, anyone infected with the virus and committing acts of violence would not be held legally responsible. No one knew how many people inside the building were already infected. In other words, the next 8 hours would turn the entire building into a lawless zone. As time passed, people inside the building began to show symptoms. Derek stood in the lobby, unsure of what to do, when a coworker he had a grudge with came up and started punching and kicking him. The physical violence triggered the virus in Derek's system. Fueled by rage, Derek wanted to kill, but a friend stepped in just in time to stop him. However, under the influence of the virus, Derek was now in a state of extreme excitement, determined to go to the 9th floor to get revenge on John. By now, the building had descended into chaos, with the infected turning on each other in a violent frenzy. Derek took the elevator, intending to go straight to the 9th floor, but realized he didn't have clearance to access it. Furious, he started cursing at the elevator, unaware that John, who had also been infected, was watching the whole scene from above. John manipulated the elevator to bring Derek down to the basement. As Derek continued to rage, the elevator doors suddenly opened, and a group of men in black dragged him into the warehouse below. Before Derek could react, the men beat him mercilessly. But just breaking Derek's bones wasn't enough for John. He gave the order to completely shatter Derek's bones. Luckily, at the crucial moment, someone arrived and started fighting the men in black. Unfortunately, one of the attackers pushed so hard that his head impaled on a nail. When Derek lifted his head, he saw blood pouring from the man's mouth.
Smell. Toast.
Seeing someone killed made John even more excited. He had his bodyguards knock Derek unconscious with a single punch and lock him in the basement to be tortured later. When Derek woke up, he found a woman standing before him. It turned out the woman was a client of the company who had been deceived and was there to seek justice. The security guards, fearing Melanie would cause trouble, had locked her up as well. Recognizing Derek as an employee of the company, she greeted him with hostility. Before Derek could explain, Melanie spat on him. At this point, Derek's anger was already sky high. After a brief struggle, both of them suddenly realized they had a common enemy. So, after exchanging insults, they quickly decided to team up. Melanie was also infected with the red eye virus, and now was their best chance for revenge. Derek pried open the basement door, and the two began searching for weapons, hammers, wrenches, and a small electric saw. They took all the tools they could get their hands on, and even equipped themselves with automatic nail guns. There were still 6 hours left until the virus disinfection would be completed. The company building had 9 floors, but starting from the 6th floor, access required keycards. The keycard for the door between the 6th and 7th floors was with HR manager Lester, and the card for access to the 8th floor was held by their boss, Kara. Their first target was now Lester. Agreeing on their plan, the two made their way to the 6th floor, which was already in complete chaos. After meeting Lester hurriedly ran back to his office after dodging, while Derek repeatedly rammed the door with a cart. At that moment, the bodyguards Lester had called arrived, and one shot Melanie down with an electric gun. Derek threw the cart at the bodyguard, then used the distraction to hide to the side. The chaos actually worked in Derek's favor. He launched a sneak attack on the bodyguard from behind. Lester, thinking it was safe, stepped out and saw Melanie on the ground. He kicked her. Melanie struggled to reach for the nail gun. but Lester kicked it aside. The gun ended up landing right in Derek's hand. Derek kicked the door open and greeted everyone.
May we come in?
And if I said no?
Under the threat of the nail gun, Lester willingly handed over his keycard, but just as Derek reached for it, Lester suddenly lashed out and stabbed Derek's hand with scissors. Lester then knocked Melanie to the ground, grabbing the nail gun and firing at her. Fortunately, the shots hit the ground. Amid the struggle, Melanie pulled a chainsaw out of her bag. After taking care of Lester,
It's gonna hurt. All right, on the count of...
the two successfully obtained the keycard. Now, they had to go to the 7th floor to find Kara. Meanwhile, John was starting to panic. He ordered Kara to destroy the keycard and placed a $500,000 bounty on Derek. Kara feared that if she destroyed the keycard, Derek would kill her in a fit of rage. So, she prepared two plans. She told her secretary to hide the keycard, while she gathered her henchmen to intercept Derek and Melanie. Seeing that Kara refused to cooperate, Derek and Melanie had no choice but to use force.
Consider yourselves notified.
After a brutal fight, they reached Kara's office. It was Kara's betrayal that framed Derek, leading to his dismissal from the company. Derek was tempted to kill her right there, but the keycard was in her hands, so he had to compromise and promise not to harm her. Kara ordered her secretary to hand over the keycard, but instead, the secretary threw over a piece of scrap metal. John had already bribed the secretary. Knowing that Kara was fickle, he promised the secretary Kara's position once everything settled. Enraged, Kara tried to strike back, but the secretary stabbed her repeatedly, killing her.
In fact...
With the keycard destroyed, getting to the 9th floor was no longer an option. Derek and Melanie consoled each other. Spurred by passion, Derek suddenly thought of a solution. He quickly pulled up his pants and fled the scene. Derek found Ray, the IT manager, with whom he had a good relationship. Derek asked Ray to use hacking skills to access the computer of Irene, a female shareholder, and copy many of the company's confidential files. In order to retrieve the valuable data, Irene had no choice but to negotiate with Derek. But Irene had her own schemes, and Derek didn't get the keycard he wanted. The negotiations fell apart. John also received word from Irene ahead of time. As Derek was about to leave, he was blocked by bodyguards. Irene took the opportunity to attack. Derek was no match for the bodyguards, although he stabbed one's arm with a screwdriver. He was pinned to the ground, about to be sprayed with pepper spray. Suddenly, Derek opened his mouth, caught the pepper spray, and spat it back into the bodyguard's eyes. Meanwhile, Melanie subdued Irene. Just as Melanie was about to finish her off, Irene revealed a secret. Even with the keycard, they couldn't access the top floor without a passcode. If they wanted to proceed, Derek had to leave Melanie behind with her. Apparently, during the earlier fight, Irene had developed a deep hatred for Melanie. To continue upward, Derek punched Melanie unconscious, then tied her to a chair. Melanie cursed Derek constantly, but he was unmoved. After a farewell kiss, Derek entered the elevator with Irene. As the elevator ascended, Derek flashed a sinister smile. When he tied Melanie up earlier, he had secretly removed 2 screws from the chair. By the time Irene realized, Melanie had already freed herself. Derek finally arrived at the top floor, only to be greeted with champagne and beautiful women. The entire board of directors was there. John tossed a contract to Derek. If he signed it, he would instantly become a partner in the company. But Derek rejected it without hesitation. Seeing that persuasion didn't work, John dropped the pretense and grabbed a nearby pool cue. Derek picked up a wrench. After a fierce fight, Derek gained the upper hand and punched John off the 9th floor. The shareholders, stunned by Derek's actions, unanimously supported him to become the new partner, but Derek declined and instead signed off on the rightful compensation for Melanie. As for Derek himself, he had other plans. He was heading to New York, the city of death.